our chair, Jamie Craven, was unable to attend today. He's out in Wyoming visiting a daughter, right? Laramie, if I remember. So I'm going to open the meeting, and we'll do the appointment of an acting chair, and then do the roll call and so forth. So, well, I guess we have to do the roll call first. Let's do the roll call.
Representatives, please state your name for the record when I call the taxing district you represent. City of DeKalb,
Bill Nicholas.
DeKalb Community Unit School District 428,
Cindy Carpenter.
DeKalb County,
Gary Hansen.
DeKalb Park District,
Amy Dow.
DeKalb Township,
Jennifer Jeep Johnson.
Kishwaukee Community College 523,
Bob Johnson.
Kishwaukee Water Reclamation District,
Mark Eddington.
DeKalb Public Library, DeKalb Township Road and Bridge District,
Craig Smith.
DeKalb County Forest Preserve. 8 present.
Thank you. So, do we have a motion to appoint a temporary chair?
I motion to appoint Amy Dahl to chair.
We have a second?
I'd second that.
Gary Hansen. Discussion? Do you have any campaign speeches?
I do not have a speech
Okay.
prepared.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Then we'll move on to item C. I'll take a motion on the minutes from July 26th of 2019.
We asked to add one item that tried too late last time to update on forensic audit to the agenda.
So we have a motion
Yes.
to amend the agenda to add an update on the forensic audit. Do we have a second?
Make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so we'll add that. Okay, and now we'll take a motion on the minutes.
Move to approve the minutes.
Take a second.
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion, corrections, additions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we've approved the minutes. Do we have any public participation? Seeing none, we'll move on to the presentation of the third quarter fiscal year 2019 TIF financials. Bill, do you want to give us an update?
Yeah, I attached with your agenda the same documents that I've been sending around since the beginning of the year, identifying revenues and expenditures, and I think the detail is sufficient, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Ray Munch is here as well, and we'll address any questions you have. I would say in this regard, you know, we've been tracking our actual staff time as it relates to TIF projects that would be time spent, or time that is spent that can't be assigned somewhere else as part of our routine duties. And as I mentioned in my background, we decided to stop any transfers after the second quarter when we last met, and after looking at the time allocated since then, I'm see no reason to change that. In fact, at the end of the year, we'll make some slight adjustment, because you can see we're not going to be even near where the amended total was going to be. So we're going to align it as closely as possible with actual spending by the end of the year.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
It's related to TIP 2, and now that that's expired, are you anticipating any additional leftover surplus to be distributed?
Yes, anything that's not assigned to a project, and we have some funds that will be allocated to Barb City Manor as part of a lease that we did back in June, and an escrow that I I don't know if it's actually been, Ray, I don't know if that escrow's been set up or not, but we had an obligation, a couple $100,000 to pay there for fire escape and repairs and electrical repairs, and those will hopefully be done. If there's a carryover, that will be set aside, but otherwise, there will be some surplus coming your way. At this point, I'm not sure what that will be.
Do we know a rough date of when the plaza redevelopment is expected to
The what,
wrap
the
up?
redevelop?
The plaza.
Oh, when it's going to wrap up?
Yep.
It's more or less on schedule. The original plan was by the end of the spring. You know, the interior work obviously is yet, a lot of that yet to be done. Some of the framing was being done as the floors were being built. There's still some interior partitions and the electrical, they've just in the last 2 weeks gotten it more or less weather tight. It's not been perfect. The third story on the east side has been problematic. It's the area that's least accessible, so that's the last area that will be bricked. And so the short of it is the mechanicals, the electricals, and all the rest of that, plumbing, rough-ins, they're actually starting, they're proceeding right now, but much of that remains to be done. And then the drywall and the finishes. So you've got about 4 or 5 months at least there.
It was noted at the last meeting that there had been some miscalculation in the 2017 report, and that taxing bodies were going to get an additional surplus payment. Did that go out?
Is that from TIF 1?
Yes.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments on the third quarter TIF financials? All right, then we'll move on to an update on the TIF projects. I know you covered just a little bit there.
Yeah, just a little bit on Plaza, but I could start.
Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead.
No, that's relevant. Egyptian Theater, got the ceiling trusses set, and that's a project that's had some delays due to utility work and other things, unforeseen weather issues and so forth. So where we are now is probably where the general contractor hoped they would be about a month ago, but they have accelerated the pace in the last couple of weeks, and the objective is to get going now that the trusses have been set on the roof. It's going to be a not a built-up roof. It's going to be a membrane roof, so it should go pretty quickly. And then the brickwork will be done by Weaver Construction. It's just finishing up a lot of the brickwork next door. Move right in, get going on that, and then. And I think we'll hit the goal of getting it enclosed by the really bad weather, and then can really roll. There is a lot of work that you can't see walking by that's been done in the basement area of the main structure to prepare for the connections that will be made between the chillers that are in the basement of the new addition and all the ductwork that they've been installing underneath in the basement area of the old structure. So there's been a lot of work done this year, not as much as you can see. So it's moving along. They've been raising money as time has been going on as well. Hometown Restaurant, if you haven't been in there, is done now. The upgrades and expansion are done. It was an opening last week. It's very nice in the new addition, and we will look at all the paperwork, but there was a soft opening a week ago today, and had a chance to go through it. Very nicely done. We talked a little bit about Plaza DeKalb, Gore Tower. Mr. Pappas does intend to get going on the environmental mitigation yet this fall, weather permitting, and maybe even some demolition through the winter. Again, that's something that's dependent on the weather, but is anxious to get going on that. That will be the biggest project in view next year, of course. Since we last met, the Alulu group from Chicago that wanted to remodel the Smith Building, which is where the house formerly was, that project is not going forward. A decision made by the Alulu company, and so we've been working with the owner of the building to talk through a couple of different ideas that he had. Presently, there's going to be, tonight, as a matter of fact, there's going to be music, sort of a mini, I don't know, I'm not a musician, I don't know. So I'll just say it's going to be a gathering to try out the first floor again as a music venue, and some entertainment. Tapa, which is a restaurant in downtown, is catering food in, and some professional musicians are going to be in there. And the owner of the building happens to be a musician, a professor of music, and so that's still his keen interest. And whether that continues to be an on-again, off-again thing or not, I don't know. He clearly wants to have a more steady presence there, as we do, and so we're working on that. We're also working with the broker for the restaurant immediately across the street, and we've had a couple of interested parties look at that. I gave you a little summary of the architectural improvement program, which is done for the year, and that's sort of a quick once around. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
Of the TIF projects, which ones are still TIF 2?
We ported, well, the only thing remaining in TIF 2 really is the Barb City Manor piece.
So that's not on this.
That's, yeah, and that's all but done. That's the closeout. We're going to close out one way or another at the end of the year, and the council has voted the ordinance to officially close.
So these are all TIF 1 projects?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Under the architectural improvement program,
Yeah.
do the people who submit for those projects also have to meet the typical, I think, is it generally 30% of the overall project, or is that just?
There are 3 different categories, so it's various percentages. If it's life safety repair, maybe a higher percentage than if it's not essential for weatherizing, or, as I said, life safety. If it's an awning, lesser percent. So these totals, if you saw the background, you see the Carlson Apartments for windows, okay, that's a weatherization thing. They were the original windows, a higher percent. Children's did an entry door to make it accessible. Accessibility is one of the higher percentage categories. The Women's Center, actually that painting has not been done. They had a problem with the contractor, so we'll see what happens, but the contract was to get through into the spring, so they have an opportunity to come back, and that will complicate a little bit the accounting going forward. And the work that's happening on Brown Law is a mix, Some of those were weatherization, some of them were painting and beautification, not quite the same percentage.
So do these numbers reflect what the city
Yeah.
paid?
And
not
will
the
pay.
project-
Will
will
pay,
pay,
yeah.
and so
It's
the
a
overall-
reimbursement.
But the project cost total likely exceeds
Oh, yeah.
in some, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You know, I can see where some of these probably add to our economic development, but where does an apartment windows, how does that benefit us?
The maintenance, I wasn't here at the creation of the program, but it's not unlike a program that I ran in Sycamore too. So the effective maintenance of certain uses, if in that case, it was once a commercial building with offices up and down, then it was converted, I believe, about 15 years ago to apartments. And so residential is still part of the TIF fabric. It's understood that to maintain viable commercial activity, you need to have some buyers and some people who are working. In this case, it was they were not able to gain market rents because the windows were the original metal windows from the 60s. They weren't. They were single pane windows. A lot of them weren't sliding or closing tightly anymore, so it came in and that qualified. It was part of the criteria set up by the council 15, 20 years ago. So it's process. Yeah. It's not a high value part of the overall program, but it's a piece of it.
Any other questions? Okay, then we will move on to an update on the forensic audit.
Right. I'll just say that I've been involved in that whenever we've had some progress meetings, but the person who's been involved in the day-to-day most is Mr. Munch, and the two accountants we have senior accountant, an accountant in the finance office who are there whenever our accountants, forensic accountants are in, which isn't every day. And sometimes there have been gaps of a week or more. But when they do come in, they usually give us a list beforehand. We have the things ready, and it takes time to pull that together. And a lot of their heavy lifting in terms of asking for information was occurring at the same time as we were doing our normal annual audit. So they were quite busy. And Ray, do you have something you'd like to say? Maybe you might mention what the differences are intimately in terms of what they're looking for in terms of evidence versus the usual audit information.
Sure. So first off, let me explain a little bit as to what the process has been and the work that's actually taken place. So initially, they decided to break the audit project into smaller pieces, I think just for sake of simplifying the process. So they did an initial review of TIF expenditures and projects from 2015 to 2019, and during that, they basically took a dump of every accounts payable transaction out of the TIF accounts during those years, and they went through a review, and then whether they were random samples or targeted samples, I'm unclear, but they gave us a list of items that they wanted to examine more closely. So for each of those items, we pulled all of the accounts payable backup documents, POs, invoices, things of that nature, and they went through an exhaustive review of those. After that review, they got into what's considered the more forensic analysis of those items, where they wanted to see the actual development agreement, proof of services, any vendor agreements that existed to determine TIF eligibility and things like that. After that initial phase, they just within the past couple of weeks went into a second phase where they're now looking at the years 2009 to 2014. So we're working our way through that process the same way. They're actually held up in the room right behind us right now, plugging away at the numbers. So obviously, we haven't seen any reports or findings at this point. They're still in their examination phase, but they have informed us that they feel they're pretty close to being done, and their goal is to be completed with reports generated by Thanksgiving.
How would that report be distributed or shared, or will there be a presentation of their findings or their report?
So my understanding, and Bill can clarify if I miss anything, but that report would be sent to the state's attorney's office, who actually has the contract and the agreement for the auditing services. And then what Mr. Amato's office does with it from there, I think, is undetermined.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's pretty clear that the city council is just as interested as other taxing bodies, so I think we'll make sure that there's a diplomatic way to do this, but the council will be eager to see the results and the findings, and will not want to read about it first. So we'll work it out.
Okay.
We're anxious to make it public and whatever the results are. I will say that we haven't talked about this very much, but judging by the summary meetings that I've attended with Ray, what we're trying to do at the JRB level is consistent with how they would script the sharing of information, the transparency of information.
When you record the TIF hours that you do, and I appreciate that you do that in a minute, I assume you're including the time you have to spend on the forensic audit as part of those hours?
Yeah.
Seems fair, but
in fact, I don't think I've declared 1 hour. I just think I could. I mean, every minute I've spent. But people like Ray and others, Bob Miller has also, in the last batch, you saw some correspondence. We estimated his numbers. Management employees don't do timesheets, so we're keeping a special list for our TIF activity, and that includes time spent specifically on that audit.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to Ray for getting that data together regarding the TIF 2 and TIF 1, what's coming back on the tax rolls, because I know that was getting a little confusing, and it's really obviously very important that we capture those dollars. It's pretty significant, I know, on the district's part and all the other tax matters. So thank you for your time spent doing that. I'm sure it was a fun project.
To be fair, Diane Chappell at the county did a lot of the heavy lifting, so
She's pretty good. She's
Yeah.
really easy.
thank you, though.
Yeah.
All right, and next on our agenda, we have a note that the next meeting is actually today, so do we have a?
Yeah, mistake there.
That's fine, just,
We adjourn and then we.
Yeah, and then open. It's been a fast 3 months. January 24th is tentatively, that's keeping our sequence. Sorry for that.
Yeah.
okay, if there's no other business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.